Star Trek Discovery, Stormy Weather, Season 4, Episode 6. It seemed to be a combination of 2 Next Generation episodes, Where Silence Has Lease, and Where No One Has Gone Before.
Yeah, the Where No One Has Gone Before, that's a Season 1 episode. That's the one with the Traveler and Kaczynski, and they left normal space into some other dimension or realm. And then Where Silence Has Lease, that's a Season 2 episode. That's the one with Nagilum, and they entered that void of nothingness. And these are both Next Generation episodes. It wasn't exactly the episodes, but they entered this void, and that's the first thing when we were watching this. I said, this is like the Nagilum episode, and they shot out one of their droids to go out and check out the void they were in. And at first I was like, you just watch, that thing's going to appear on the other side of them when it goes outside of their sensor range, just like that episode. They didn't do that. For some weird reason, the bot, when it got so far out, it just started disintegrating. It was odd because in the episode they compared it to, it just got eaten, and the visual effects didn't look anything like something was getting eaten, so I don't know where they got that from.
No, it looked like it was being disintegrated.
And this episode started. It almost seems like the people making this show have been following my displeasure with Michael Burnham lately, because they added more fuel to the fire. I complained last week about Michael Burnham being the inappropriate person to be getting that family tree from Felix the Prisoner from last week's episode. And the episode starts out this week where Michael Burnham has decided it's a great idea. She's creating a holographic family tree for herself. And she's got both Georgios on there and adult and child Spock. And then Book walks up and takes a look at it and starts talking and mumbling about his family. And to me, like you said last week, I don't understand. Dr. Culber and Book have been trying to have therapy sessions. And the last time they had one, they were using some sort of, virtual clay or something. And Book was molding stuff that didn't seem to have a purpose. And if Book would have been allowed to be the one with the family tree, him getting the tree from Felix and then giving it to the victim's daughter, and then he decided as part of that ceremony that he did of giving the family tree to that daughter, of then deciding, you know what, maybe this will help me heal and deal with my planet and reconnect with my roots, so to speak. And it would have made more sense for Book to have done that last week, like I said in my video, and then what do you know, this week it just follows along.
That would have made more sense than what they did.
And they're setting up Michael Burnham. This is so get this. Michael Burnham, she was explaining in the first episode of this season when she was talking to the president of the Federation. Michael Burnham's problem is that she just cares too much. And they're tying this back to when Michael Burnham was hiding in the closet when was it her mom and her dad?
Obviously her mother survived, but her dad was murdered by Klingons.
And she was hiding in this closet and she couldn't do anything. So they're trying to make Michael Burnham, yet again, she's this overly sympathetic character that you've got to embrace these feelings and turn them into positives. And given what I've been talking about with Michael Burnham being this serial murderer that has not taken responsibility for her murders, I even make the joke about last week, you push that stuff way down, way down. She gave that advice this week.
Well, it was weird because this entire episode felt like it was just one giant therapy session from beginning to end, with that gray character counseling Zora with her newfound emotions, and Michael indulging Zora and her newfound emotions. And then, of course, Book and what seems like newfound daddy issues. I mean, it was weird. It was really, really weird.
Michael Burnham, Zora, which is the AI in the computer. I think they got that AI from that control crap from a couple of seasons ago, didn't they?
Yeah.
during this crisis they were having in this void, because the computer, I guess, was too slow to activate a force field, or it didn't detect it got a sensor detection and it wasn't quick enough to spot the danger. I forget what it was, but it sucked out this crewman. And get this, Zora the AI was feeling remorse for the death of that one person.
No. Zora was feeling guilt.
Sorry, guilt. It wasn't remorse there. You're right.
It was guilt. And as I said in the previous review for the previous episode, guilt seems to be the topic of the season.
Yeah, because she wasn't necessarily sorry. She just had guilt it happened. And Michael Burnham went into counseling Zora and said something very similar to, well, you just have to learn to move beyond that because you can't let that cripple you. And I'm thinking, yeah, you just push that stuff way down. I mean, I understand that the advice in general is good advice. If you dwell on something for too long and don't move on, that can be very mentally unhealthy for you. But it just felt like they were listening to the videos that we've both been making. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I've been ranting about Michael Burnham because she just what they're trying to do with that character just irritates me. And she gave that advice. The push that down, push it way down and move on from that. And I'm like, I just lifted my arms up in disbelief and looked at the ceiling and I'm like, how did they get away with this? And then they were trying to paint her because she was explaining, well, that's what I had to do because when I hid in that closet and there was nothing I could do and I've just been letting that eat away at me. And then the implication is that's why, she just tries to care and save everybody she can is because of that. But somehow when people get murdered at her hands, she doesn't bother to think twice about that. So that bothered me. That's just more of the leftover from last week in my Michael Burnham. Like, are they going to give me anything to try to work with this person? And then at the end there, at the end of the episode, Michael Burnham's like, she's finishing up her family tree, and it just really rubbed me the wrong way. And the part of the episode that felt like where no one has gone before was when they moved, when Kaczynski and the Traveler moved the Enterprise to this other place. And so people's dreams or wishes were becoming physically manifest. And Picard was walking down a corridor and he saw, I think, his mother. And he was having a conversation with his mother because they were in this other space. And somehow the energy of this space could take your, wishes, desires, and channel them into physical form. So Book actually, when they were stuck in the void, maybe you should tell this piece of the story about how did Book get the jumper cables mixed up so that what happened to him happened.
Yeah, it was weird because they were trapped in this void, like that one TNG episode. They were going to try to use the mycelial network to jump out of there. So Book was trying to jump, and because there were holes in the network in the void, there was some sort of feedback of energy from the void that got into Book's brain, and he started hallucinating. And of course, it manifested his father, and that was weird because, maybe this was addressed before, but this was the first I'd paid attention to it. His daddy issues that were referenced at the beginning of the episode, all of a sudden here's Daddy, and Daddy's giving him all sorts of shit for, basically using the mushroom patch as a playground while, the people who destroyed his planet are getting away with it. It was really bizarre. It was like, again, it was like copying the TNG episode where no one has gone before. And I swear to God, this episode, this Discovery episode was like those two TNG episodes got into a massive fist fight and beat each other silly, and what you had left was this Discovery episode.
Yeah, they had a little bit of extra crap on there, Dad did have one great line when he was giving his son the business. He said something like, "And you're dabbling with mushrooms." And I mean, I think the entire audience must have LOL'd because we've been saying that for 4 freaking seasons. Not just the son, but this entire stupid show has been dabbling with stupid mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous. Him having to, I don't know, I mean, see this manifestation of his father and then choosing to believe that this actually was a manifestation of his father, not just a figment of his own imagination, because that means that his brother and his nephew still go on somewhere. And the other thing about this episode that was truly bizarre was Michael Burnham, when she was counseling Zora about her newfound feelings and the guilt and the fear, and Michael essentially telling Zora, there are some things that are just beyond your control. So basically, just don't worry about it.
Push that stuff way down, way down!
So I mean, it was just like, oh my god. But then there was actually a moment between Saru and Book.
Yeah, which was a good scene.
Yeah, where Saru basically told Book that, yes, you have all this rage inside, but you have to manage that so you can stay productive. I mean, that was really good advice. And it's a good thing it came from Saru, because if it came from Michael Burnham, it would have fallen flat like all the other advice she gave.
Yeah. From Saru, this was good advice. I mean, that scene was really good. That was the highlight of the whole episode.
Yeah, but I mean, it comes back around to the fact that the creators and writers of this show, what they did to Michael Burnham's character was terrible. Because they saddled her with this horrible background that she's had to carry throughout the show. And there is no redeeming what she did.
Well, now they're trying to rewrite it but she had that horrible childhood, so she was hiding in her closet, and it's like, no matter what trauma she went through, that does not justify all the murders that she did. Nothing in your past justifies killing people like that.
No.
Or attacking your captain and knocking her out. No amount of trauma justifies that.
Well, I mean, those first 2 episodes were garbage of the entire series. And, yeah, there is no fixing that. I mean, it's a shame. I don't know why they did that to that character. I truly am just in awe of what they did there. Like, I don't even understand why they did that. What they thought they were accomplishing with that, I don't know.
They created a character from the first episode that is so unlikable. You can see they are really trying. In this episode, it was very apparent. They're really trying to make Michael Burnham this balanced character that's wise, and she's able to think through things, and she's able to give comfort to people who needs it. And they're trying really hard to restart this character, to reboot this character.
Yeah.
And for anybody who hasn't seen the previous seasons, maybe that's working for you, but it's not for me.
No. Michael
Burnham, she was, when how they decided to get out of this void. First of all, the joke that's going on the internet for a while, and you know which YouTube channel is doing this, talking about sonar in space. And that's from that season 1 episode. This is not an exaggeration. I am not using improper words here. This was in the script. They decided to get out of this void. They had to somehow map, I don't know, the perimeter or the particles or something. And this one bridge officer decided that a certain frequency of signals would allow them to detect where the perimeter of this stuff is. And he said it's the same wavelength as old school Earth sonar. So they're going to use sonar in space to get out of the void.
Yep.
And so as they were doing this, they were like running out of power. And so what they decided to do was to put everybody in the transport buffer except for Michael Burnham so she could oversee the project. So she gets into this spacesuit, and sits on the bridge while everybody's in the transporter buffer. And the suit looks like a Tron Legacy suit. Or a really bizarre Eurovision Song Contest outfit. With all these weird lights on it and stuff. And she's sitting on this chair, her captain's chair. And Zora was talking, I forget how the conversation started, but it was something like Zora was having doubts she could pull this off, and Michael Burnham's like, you can do this.
Oh, you've got this. And
then didn't Zora say something like, I'm scared or something? And then Michael Burnham talked about fear and how you can use fear, it's for your benefit. And you were sitting there with me, and it's like, shouldn't Michael Burnham, given her background with Vulcans, shouldn't she have said that, like, something like, fear serves no purpose, it's better to use logic to try to get through problems like this? But, no, she was talking about fear.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, she comes across like a Sith rather than a Jedi, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. This episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes. And Jonathan Frakes usually is able to polish a little bit of the turd so it's not so dingy. And I mean, the episode itself moved along well enough. But this story, although it wasn't horrible, I mean, the Michael Burnham stuff irritated me to no end. They needed to stop trying to make her this overly empathetic creature because of what they did in her season 1. There's no trauma in your past that will make me say it's okay to kill people and to not have massive, massive guilt about that. So nothing about her trauma, her past, her parents, none of that's going to make me forgive what she did. And she's not even trying to look for forgiveness. She's just pushing that stuff way down, and now she's giving advice to other people like that.
Well, it was beyond her control.
Yeah, beyond my control. Let's push that way down.
It was going to happen anyway. I mean, oh my god. Not to mention the fact that it seemed like the intelligence level of this episode was like 6th grade as far as
all it
was aimed at.
All it was people talking about their feelings. Every single story plotline, except the Void, was all about your feelings. And even the Void turned into Book and his dad, so even that turned into about your feelings.
Oh god. Yeah. And you'd think Frakes would know better. I mean, maybe he just got assigned this episode, like, here you go, you gotta direct, and maybe he needs the paycheck.
Make this work.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is like, he was in both of those TNG episodes that this seemed to really strongly borrow from. And I use that term borrow loosely. Because, I mean, you could say, oh, well, those things happened in that same universe, so why couldn't they happen again? But why are you retelling a story that's already been done in the same universe?
Yeah, now the big difference here is there was no Nagilum. However, they did find that the anomaly, its origin is outside of the Milky Way galaxy, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. And when they came to that revelation, I just shrugged my shoulders. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't even care about this story. So I don't know if there's much more. I guess for Book and Gray, they were trying to find something for them to do. I guess they were trying to create this idea that both of them are just looking for something, a purpose on the ship. And so Book, before he got electrocuted by the mushrooms, he went down to engineering to ask Stamos if he could help. And Gray went to, I guess, what they called the lounge, which is kind of like a 10 forward, except nobody was there. Because I was joking with you. I'm like, where is everybody in this lounge? And, you were like, well, they're probably on duty. And I said, but don't they have like a day and night shift? And you said, well, since there's like 10 people on the ship, they probably don't have enough people to have a day and night shift.
Exactly. They've got one shift of people and you have to work all the time. That's what this ship is. That's why the lounge is empty.
So it was just Gray in this lounge talking to Zora, and Gray wanted to play this was it a Bajoran game? I think it was a Bajoran game.
Was it? I don't know. The Trills used it.
Was it Trills? Okay.
To help with some sort of sensory overload.
Okay, then there's a Trill game, excuse me.
Yeah.
And Gray was offering reaffirmation to Zora.
Yeah.
I think that's the only nice way to put it. And I did appreciate that they tried to develop Book's character and his family history, But doing it with that mushroom electrocution and his hallucination or whatever that was of his dad, like, really? That's how you're going to do that?
I mean, this guy has enough problems. You didn't need to add daddy issues to the whole thing.
Well, yeah.
I mean, come on.
And again, if they would have allowed Book to be the one building the family tree, they could have had scenes where Michael Burnham, I mean, as disgusting as this would be, because it's Michael Burnham, sitting down, seeing Book slowly build this family tree, and then her asking, hey, who's this? And then Book could talk about which family member that was. Mm-hmm. That would have been a very nice way to develop his character.
Well, plus the other thing is that when Book was hallucinating his father, when his father was bitching him out because he wasn't out there hunting down the people who murdered his planet, Book could have said something like, seeking revenge is counterproductive. He's choosing to channel his energy into preserving the memory of his people, all of their accomplishments. He's it. He is responsible now for carrying his species forward. And considering he's the last one, that's it. It's their memory that's going to be preserved. There's the genetics, it's done. Mm-hmm. And one would say that that's extremely important to preserve their history. But no, that wasn't a thing.
Oh, and at the end of the episode, so when Michael Burnham was like finishing up her family tree, Zora asked, do you want to see my family tree? And Michael Burnham's like, yeah, great. So Zora brings up this family tree that has like the entire crew of Discovery on it. And that's exactly my response to that. I just started laughing, going, okay, okay, that's your found family. Well done. This is going to be extremely petty and I suppose barely worth mentioning. But they had a lot of wide shots in this episode of the people in their uniforms. And their uniforms have these crooked tails at the bottom of them. And it reminds me of, if anybody's seen South Park and has seen the Tweet character. And the Tweet character drinks all this, well, he used to drink all this caffeine and coffee and whatever. So he'd get really cornholioed up. And so the way they drew him was they drew his buttons. So he was apparently all like caffeined up. He wasn't paying attention to how he buttons his shirt. So he buttons his shirt crooked. So the buttons are all like on the one side, he's buttoning the holes that are supposed to be one down. So when you look at the bottom of his shirt's all crooked at the bottom because the buttons don't line up. That's what these uniforms look like. And once you know that, you cannot unsee this when they walk around.
Yes, the asymmetrical hem is extremely distracting.
And I was laughing. I'm like, that's Tweak. I just expect them to get all cornholioed up with coffee or something. And yeah, it's Tweak. It's too much pressure.
Yeah, I don't even understand the purpose of that either, other than I think they think that looks cool.
It looks stupid.
But yeah, it doesn't look cool. It looks really stupid.
It looks like somebody who didn't know how to sew was asked to sew something together. And it's pretty close. That's fine. We'll just pretend we meant it that way. So this episode, was it horrible? I don't think it was horrible. It was just stupid. There was just a level, the sonar in space. The high point were two things, the dabbling with mushrooms, which that was really funny. That is worth hearing that guy say that line. That was hilarious. And then that last scene with Saru and Book, that was a good scene. I mean, I wish we would have gotten a lot more scenes like that in this series, because that was actually a good scene. And it talked about human nature, and, revenge is something that Saru was able to talk to Book about because of what his people went through. And he was talking about how, yeah, that still exists inside of him, but he's got to learn to deal with that and to kind of move on from that. And that was a good scene that actually, those two people felt like human feelings type people, and not the crying in hallways, but talking about the human condition.
Yeah.
That felt like Star Trek. That one scene felt like Star Trek with Saru and Book.
But overall, this episode was a waste of time.
Yep.
They didn't move the story forward very much. This information that was actually important could have been included in a different episode that moved the story forward more. And they still could have had a lot of that. Book and Saru kind of discussing how to deal with their trauma in a productive way, without all the other weird shit that happened in this episode of people sharing the traumatic experiences, like, at inappropriate times. So, I mean, it just, this episode, it was not good.
So, if you have access to watch this and you're trying to figure out what I want to watch this, my vote is skip it. What about you?
Oh yeah, definitely skip it. I mean, unless you are looking for a good laugh and you want to enjoy these crew members whining about their pasts at inappropriate times in the middle of a crisis, then go for it. Because you know what? If you're into that kind of thing, it might be worth watching. But otherwise, this didn't really move the story forward at all. So leave us some comments and we'll see you in the next video.